Hey everyone, in this video we're going to be taking a look at the Chapter 13 exercises here. And as per usual, I'm just going to kind of jump over the first tab. I think it's just more of a matching drop downs, etc. So I'll let you all work through those, but let's go on to the second tab here, beginning with question 5. And I think also on this one, actually, as I look through it, it's relatively basic and straightforward. So, as far as looking at these analytics or these metrics here and saying, is your company's asset turnover better or worse? You just have to look and say, okay, if we have this much asset turnover, the industry average is 6, then you need to go through and say, okay, is asset turnover good? Do we want asset turnover, right? Is a high ratio a good thing? And like in the instance of asset turnover, basically what we're saying is that's kind of indicative of how much, our assets are, especially when it comes to things like inventory. There is a separate inventory turnover ratio. But what does that asset turnover ratio indicate? More movement of your assets, less stagnation, leading to better, more business activity essentially. So you might need to do a little bit of research on these ones, to get to a place where you understand what the metrics indicate. But you've got your company, another competitor, and then a benchmark, and you just need to understand and do the calculations there. Okay, then let's look at tab number 6. In this one, we just need to do some calculations of some relatively basic metrics. And so for something like gross profit margin, we just can, look through again, these are all pretty basic. This chapter actually doesn't have a lot of technical work in it, so it's not going to be super hard. But you need to look at things like, how do I calculate gross profit? And then remembering that it's net sales. And one little trick I'll give you is you can't select into these cells because these are what kind of special Excel spreadsheets set up, just for these homework problems. But you can still link to the cells, and you can but you have to type in the cell number. So C6, we want net sales minus cost of goods sold, so you can say C6 minus C7, and then when you have that formula, and it's a little easier to then drag across essentially and have the update for the rest of the components of that, for the other years here essentially. So again, similarly, if we want to calculate net income, we just need to take other expenses away from, let's do my trick here. So C8, so we want to take gross profit margin, or gross profit, and in other words, margin, minus other operating expenses to give us net income. And then again, we can just drag that across. So that's just a little trick to make it easier, so you don't have to type everything in directly as far as the numbers go. Remember, whenever we're talking about averages in our class, we're just going to take the current year plus the prior year. I'm sorry, I need to look at average inventory. Sorry, not average assets. And again, I almost did it again. So let's link to our totals above. So here we'd want to say C9 plus D9, so we're taking current year inventory plus prior year, and then divide by 2, real simple average, there's 2 things, divide by 2, and again, then you could drag back. And very similarly, let's see, okay, and here we can even just drag down now because total assets is just one cell below, and so we can do kind of that same formula to get that to work. So I think I still see the X's there though. What are we missing? Average total assets. Oh, sorry, it should be one more cell down. My mistake. Okay, so then once you get it in the right position, then you can just drag across and do that. As far as gross margin ratio, then we can use our same analysis, taking our gross profit margin, or same methodology as far as linking in, and then we just want to connect these two net sales. So that tells us basically what proportion of our net sales is being kept, how much is our cost of goods sold eating up of our sales. And here we can say profit margin, that's where we take net income as a percent of net sales actually. So let me Get them there. C6. Perfect. And then as we go through, you can basically just kind of do the same sort of thing over and over again as you go through the different ratios. And so I think I'll just kind of cut it off there and let you all work through the rest of those. Again, you can, look up the formulas and then figure out how to link in and do the whole thing there, but nothing too complex. Okay, this tab 7 talks about doing horizontal and vertical analysis. I think this one is very basic, but it is worth looking at and analyzing just in order to understand how to do these types of analyses. So if we're using 2017 as the base year for our horizontal analysis, then typically with horizontal analysis, we're going to be looking at sales, I believe. So let's take our, keep doing that. So don't do what I'm doing there. Use the trick of linking. And so we're going to use net sales as our base year. And so the thing I want to do, wait, does that work? That's funny. Well, it's funny that went away. Oh, it's 100%. It linked to the wrong cell. Let me fix that. It should be E6. It's still 100%, which is the right answer. But here's a little trick for you. So we're going to click into this cell's E6 in the middle of it or next to it with your cursor, and then hit the F4 key, and it puts the dollar signs around. And that means it's going to lock in this base year number. And so then if we drag across, you can see that this one moves to D6, and now we're dividing by that original base year of 1320. Do the same thing again. Now we're taking this. So when you have the dollar signs, it locks in that reference. But then this one moves, which is what you want for all the types of horizontal analysis, right? And there was we were looking at net sales, so that makes sense. We can drag down. Again, we're going to need to just update the formula so your locked cell with the dollar signs there goes to the right thing, but then you can just drag it over, and you can see how it's cost of goods sold divided by that base year. Cost of goods sold divided by that base year. Drag down. Do the same thing, drag your formula to make it work. And then drag across so that it's continuously referencing that base year. Okay, as far as vertical analysis goes, we can do something really similar. We're going to be using total assets as our base here. And so total assets is typically always the base when we're looking at vertical analysis types, when we're looking at balance sheet vertical analysis. So we're going to want to do something the same here because everything is divided by total assets. So again, we want those dollar signs in there, locking total assets as our base. Then we can, let's undo that. Let's drag the top formula over. With that locked cell, we need to manually move it to the right new locked cell of 2018. And then we can drag down, move this over, again, manually update the locked cell and just drag down that way. So it makes it really easy. And essentially what we're doing is we're just seeing all the components of the balance sheet as a proportion or percentage of total assets, essentially. So again, you can kind of see these are all the assets, so it all adds up to the same as the total assets. So 100% here. And and then when you look at this, especially when you have it in a trending format like that, the nice thing about this is you can see fluctuations that happen that might indicate something interesting, right? So if AR as a percentage of total assets go up, that might indicate that we're not collecting receivables for some reason this year, or we have a significant receivable that's outstanding or something like that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing or a good thing per se, but just doing these kind of analysis techniques allows us to analyze these balance sheet items and highlight or identify some things that may be specific if something changes. And also just to mention, sometimes if they don't change, maybe you expected to see a significant receivable at year end as a component of assets or something, or you bought a bunch of new inventory at the end of the year. And so if the inventory as a percent of total assets doesn't go up a bunch, maybe that's a red flag, or just a kind of just an indicator of something is not matching your expectations. And so really it comes down to defining what your expectations are and then looking at the results of these analyses and trying to see whether those results align. And if they don't align, doing some further research to better understand your balance sheet, basically. So, all right, well, yeah, not a whole lot, as far as my input or my guidance on this chapter, because I think this is a pretty straightforward chapter without a lot of technical work to do. And I think there's value in you all spending some time looking at these, doing some research, to understand all the different ratios. And so I want to leave that up to you all. Again, these ratios are real easy to figure out, as far as what the components of those are. And then I think I showed you enough there that you can set up your own formulas, etc., to get the rest of these to calculate through. So let me know if you have any questions, but good luck on that. And I'll see you in the next video and we'll walk through the discussion questions there. All right. Thanks, everybody.